Welcome to Ask the Accountant, the podcast that is made for you. Weekly podcast live Mondays from 8:30 a.m., released on the podcast service of your choice on Wednesdays. Your main weekly hosts, Aaron, Patrick, and Johann. Got something to ask? Submit your questions below or ask during the show. Podcast loading. We are currently getting everything set up behind the scenes, so sit back, relax, and we will be with you in a few seconds. Enjoy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Ask the Accountant. We are live, as we are every week, on a Monday morning at 8:30 a.m. across your favourite social media platforms. And as ever, every week, my co-host is here. Aaron, how are you and how are you feeling?
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Hello. I am just very grateful that you are the co-host of today's show.
I am going to apologise now for Aaron's sound quality. It's not a broken microphone. Aaron has got man flu.
No, not at all. No. I'm not having
too many speaking gigs.
Well, actually, I think it was just it's just been a very good weekend, and I think I just maybe burnt too many candles both ends, sort of thing. So yeah, it was actually, I might as well say now, I went to another podcast, not accounting related, but they did a annual conference type idea, like get together. Basically, they're like their con, they called it. It was North in Sunderland. And the guys are called the Computer Game Show. And what I learned a lot from that was just how how a community can be put together and run, and how they can like put on this thing. We did Laser Quest, we did mini golf, we did all sorts of as you would call it, organized fun, but it worked really, really well. So yeah, no, I actually really enjoyed it. And the best thing is, I was going to try and play it, but I don't think it's going to work. I get to go there as Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks chap. Is one of the few places where I get to go in my merch, because they have this little Patreon thing that they run, and you get to support the show. And when you support the show, you get your name thrown out. And on the show, every single time, it comes out with they go through the list of it, and I'm always number one because I was one of the first to do it. And so all I'm known as is Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks chap, because it gets shouted out at every single episode for the past 2 and a bit years. So yeah, I was every time someone went, "Wait, are you the QuickBooks chap? And what is QuickBooks? Can you explain to me what QuickBooks is?" So, I spent most of my time teaching people what QuickBooks is. So yeah, it was fun times.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like a great weekend, even if you've lost all ability to talk from it. But yeah.
You being an influencer, though, I've got a remedy for it. So we decided
got your vocal zones.
Yeah, no, that if only I'd gone that far. No, but we're going for a week away to Norfolk now, thanks to you. You're going off to Whitby for a bit. So we're packing the dog and we're off to there. And as the T-shirt says, I'm going to eat, sleep, and QuickBooks. So yeah, I've got my holiday sorted, I think.
Brilliant. That's what we like to hear. At least you're going to rest your voice for a bit.
Exactly.
As always, everybody, shout out good morning in the comments. We are going to shout you out. So here we go. We've got Paul in from YouTube. We've got Marilyn saying good morning. We've got Ashley Leeds saying good morning, guys. How was your weekend? Well, Aaron had a fantastic weekend, but it's destroyed his throat. And Ashley has also said, "Aaron, you sound terrible." No, he has said more than that. Don't worry. Have you tried vocal zones? Yes. Ashley, most of our Ask the Accountant, we have cool friends, are brought to you by the power of Vocal Zone. So,
is this where we go to our sponsored segment?
This is where we should go to a sponsored segment. Can someone get in touch with Vocal Zone, please, and see if they'll sponsor us? Just with 3 packs of Vocal Zone, that would make life a lot easier. But yeah, and morning to Paul as well. So yeah. So what I thought, I sat there last night thinking, a bit of a quiet week, what we're going to talk about here. Actually, we've got a few bits of interesting news, haven't we, to talk about, and a few bits to look at. So first thing is that seems to have just appeared. I don't know where from, because I've not seen any social media coverage for this whatsoever. And that's the Accountex software demo sessions that are going over on the next 3 days. So it's not the virtual conference, it's just session demos. And they've got 12 different software providers, an interesting selection of software providers, some big names missing from there. But they're basically giving each software provider the opportunity over 3 days to do a 45-minute demo to their audience. But I don't know how big their audience is going to be, considering no one's seen it. I mean, Aaron, you and I are all over social media news and stuff for the accounting industry. It's how we power this show every week. And the first I've heard of this was you mentioning it to me this morning, and why certain people weren't going to it. So, so basically, Accountex have organised 3 days of demos with various software partners. Interestingly, so Xero are going to be there, QuickBooks are not, Sage are not, FreeAgent are not, Hammock are not there, but Futurely, Moneypenny, Xero, DocuWave, DocuSoft, Bright, Spendesk, SMA Digital, Fathom, Dext, AutoEntry, and Employment Hero are all going to be there. So, Aaron, how did you find out about this?
So, yeah, it was a social post, but from the Accountex post itself. The only reason I even kind of looked at it and second look at it was the fact that there was people not on there that I was expecting. You know, in all honesty, I would have thought that you know, had you known this is a great platform, something like Client Engager, you know, the idea of just being able to put your demos out there. You know, you mentioned QuickBooks not being there. I mean, they've released so much new stuff over this last year. These sort of platforms are quite useful for them, and you know, I think it's just a lack of awareness more than anything else. But if this was, you know, marketed and pushed right, I thought this would be an absolute brilliant way of software to be able to get out their newest technology. You know, with everyone talking about AI at the moment, which we're going to talk about later again, these are the sort of places where you could do that, get a bit of buzz, get a bit of people talking about it. So yeah, it was just one post I've seen on LinkedIn, and that was it. That's all I've known about it so far, and it was kind of mothball from there.
That it just seems bizarre to me that the big names aren't there. Like Ian in the comments. So Ian's from FYI Docs, if my memory serves me correct. Apologies, Ian, if I've got that wrong. But yeah, that's the first he's heard of it. So yeah, it just doesn't feel very well advertised, which tells me it potentially won't be very well attended. Whether that's because they've not, you know, everyone's seen a Dex demo and a AutoEntry demo type thing, and they're not interested in the others. I don't know, but I've not seen any of these platforms promote the sessions either.
Is this more aimed at evergreen content? Is this the sort of thing where they want to kind of get it out there and then they can promote it on the back end? Maybe that's what. Maybe it's not for that live interaction. But then you know yourself, like that's where you're doing really well, is the live part of it, right? It's those constant live streams, those talking about it, those interactions that really do.
Yeah, and
without the push, without the promotion, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and then I know the best part of doing a demo is the live interaction, because ultimately, and the same rule applies from talking to your clients as it does apply to talking to bookkeepers and accountants. It's easier if you've got a question in your mind about software, it's easier that you ask it in your scenario and your terminology, and you get an answer there and then in your scenario and in your terminology, rather than being sent to watch a video where you don't quite understand what they're saying, or they've maybe missed the point that you were trying to ask, and you walk away with no answer. So yeah. Paul says this would have been great for startups too, and Paul also said that he's not heard of it. But Chris Downing, morning, Chris, has said, anyone on the accountants mailing list would have received an email 2 weeks ago about the virtual event. Either my spam folder has been extremely effective, or I'm not on a mailing list that I should be. So I'll investigate that. But thank you very much, Chris. But also, how many people unsign from these mailing lists? Or automatically divert it into the junk box or the archive file. So yeah, you can't rely on just one leg of advertising, can you, in the form of a mailing list? But at least they've put something out there, so hopefully they'll have a good turnout. But yeah, so that was the first thing. We just thought, it's odd that we've not heard about this, because we're normally all over this kind of stuff.
I do see though that this is going to be great though. That like, if they get this right, this will be a really good way of just getting those like new features, new everything else. I kind of see this as if they nail this could be something that would be quite good to look out for. So yeah, I think if we can support it, I think that's going to be good for everyone, because if there is a platform where quarterly and biannually, whatever they decide to do, that we can get like the new best of the stuff there, I think that'd be good for everyone. It almost kind of creates like in the gaming industry, there's what's called E3, like a week of people just announcing things, and this could be like the start of something like that. You know, we love Accountex because we love to go there and talk to vendors and be face to face, but it's difficult to announce something Accountex, right? That kind of gets lost and it gets there. Same with digital accounting, same with all of them. Like, unless you're doing your own dedicated show like QuickBooks Connect or XeroCon or anything like that, it's difficult to announce, you know. But whereas if they could have like almost like a place where we're expecting announcements, like this almost like a week-long thing or something like this, if this could go off, I thought that'd be really kind of useful, because that could give us like an opportunity to get right. Who it was almost like they would even save some announcements maybe for that, you know, like Bright Proposed, for example. Maybe that would have been a great time to announce it during a show like that, as opposed to they kind of announced it at Digital Accounting Show, didn't they? But I mean, we spoke about it, but it wasn't like, it's difficult to then just talk about that, isn't it? There's so much else going on.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, as you said earlier, though, this could be a great platform for those startup softwares that are trying to break into the market. Depending on accessibility and affordability of this platform, like, you know, if we've got an evergreen client and engage a demo on this, and, you know, any of the other startup softwares that are out there at the moment could be on here, and yeah, you know, like people like Tax Torch and stuff like that, it would be potentially a really good gateway to that audience. And if you then start getting traction with that kind of audience, then it's another reason to go to Accountex and have a stand there. So yeah, interesting one. I'll be keeping an eye on it, put it that way. And I will be checking my mailing lists to see where I am or not with that. Chris Downing has said he's on every mailing list. Yeah, Chris, I do not want to
including Client Engager though. Is he on the Client Engager mailing list?
No, because our Client Engager mailing list is only made up of people that have taken out trials or have an active subscription with us.
Okay.
We don't have
a few mornings in the chat as well. We missed, wasn't there? Andy's here. Oh
yeah, morning, Andy. Yep. I think that's. Oh, and Simon is joining us. He's sat on the beach by the pool in Kos watching us. I mean, I'd argue you got half of that scenario right. And I don't know if I'd be sat listening to us whilst on holiday. I mean, I certainly didn't tune into this show when I was on holiday.
Or is he got FOMO from the accounting world? And this is his only way of getting back into it.
Definitely. Cool. Okay, so so if you want to have a look at all those demos, register for any of those demos, then head over to the Accountex website and go to their webinars section. But also, I believe in the last week, they've opened the tickets for Accountex Manchester. So you can register for your free ticket for Accountex in Manchester in September, which is exciting. That's a one-day event, a bit more compact and refined from Accountex London, but an absolutely brilliant day out, especially if you're up in the north. You know, we all complain that everything's in London and then no one goes to these other events. So, footfall is what justifies these events going ahead. So if you are local to Manchester, or it's within an hour of the train or something, make sure you get over there for the day, because it is a good day. It's insightful. They've got some great speakers normally, great software's there. So yeah, but these events will only happen outside of London if we turn up and support those events outside of London, rather than sitting at home whinging that they don't do anything outside of London. So.
And it's nice. It's a one-day event, right? I mean, that's one thing we've been saying lately, isn't it? These 2-day events can be quite difficult. So yeah, back for a one-day event. And if it's anything like last time as well, there's some really clever things happening. Sage had their was it MTD tunnel and items like that. So yeah, it was it's normally got a bit of, I think that because there's more room and there's more kind of opportunity, there's chances for them to do a little bit different. Whereas with your account X and everything else, and the other ones they're quite vanilla of what they can do with it, isn't it? So
definitely. And as Paul says, it's a better night out. That's subject to opinion, before anyone shouts at me.
Well, all we did was got lost on our night out. We had to wander down to some river place somewhere, and
that's right. We went to the Iris pub quiz, didn't we, last year?
Yeah,
and that was a long walk in the rain. That was challenging, so we say. But yeah, cool. Right, so that's Manchester, Accountex Manchester. Book your tickets. You can do that on the Accountex website. We've got all these 12 webinars, demo things that are going on. You can register for each one of those on the website as well. And it looks, having had a look at the registration form, it's looking like it's one of those where you can register. If you don't turn up, you'll get a recording. So if you want to see the software, it's still worth registering, even if you don't think you can make that one session, because you'll get the recording later, which is always a benefit. So we touched on a bit of news at the end of last week, but I don't feel we did them justice. So I just wanted to spend a few more minutes on this rather than a throwaway comment, as it were. So TimWorks announced, not last week, the week before, that they will be closing their doors and they're turning off the app. So TimWorks started out in 2022. First time I saw them was at the 2022 Digital Accountancy Show, the first ever Digital Accountancy Show. They were there on one of the startup stands. And in principle, they had a sound idea. So TimWorks was going to be the WhatsApp of the accounting world. It was going to enable secure communications, both internally and externally, with your clients and your team, and sharing documents. It was going to link into, I think it did link into Xero, and you could pull in like a list from Xero. I need these receipts from you. Can you add them to this conversation channel type thing? So yeah, and then I think they wanted to try and do the same thing with QuickBooks, but the API wasn't as supportive with that from QuickBooks. I know, groundbreaking news, QuickBooks' API wasn't helpful. However, I've got more news on that later. So yeah, TimWorks was going to be this messaging app. Lots of accountants and bookkeepers kind of got on board with it. They liked the concept. They like, yes, I want this one place that I can just turn off notifications from and not worry about clients hassling me on Messenger and texts and WhatsApp and stuff. I can just train them to use this one app. I think the pricing was a challenge because it wasn't a cheap solution for accountants. But ultimately, the bit that's killed it is client take-up just wasn't there. So, accounting firms and bookkeeping firms were rolling this out and the clients just weren't using it. At which point you go, well, it's quite expensive for what it is, so we'll scrap it. And I think it just shows that it doesn't matter how good a solution we think something is as an industry. Actually, if you can't get your clients on board, the power of that solution is very, very limited. We trialed it in our firm last year now, and the team were using it internally, and it was like, it's okay, but it didn't have all the same power as using Teams or Slack. But we just couldn't get, out of 700 odd clients, we got 1 or 2 using it, and it's just like it just doesn't justify using it basically. But yeah, so they've closed. It's interesting. They're closing the doors on the app. So they're closing the app of TimWorks down, but they're not closing the business down. And they have cryptically said they'll be back soon with a new offering. Now I know they've been doing a lot of work with AI, and there's been discussions about like messenger bots to go on websites and in portals to pull off information to try and answer some of those questions that you get from your client saying, "Oh, what's my UTR number? Can you send me last year's accounts again?" In theory, that could be helpful. Again, it's going to be down to price point, I think. But yeah, it's interesting to see the demise of another software in the industry, but actually this time it's not MTD's fault, because the last few shutdowns and sellouts have been spurred on by MTD being delayed. It's interesting how, as well, that they found a solution for what the accounting industry was asking for, but then realized we couldn't execute it very effectively with the clients of that industry. Did you have a play with it at all, Aaron? Did you have any experience with this one?
I've always looked at it and thought that'll be a great solution, but as you've already said, like I know that trying to get my client to adopt to it would have been really difficult. I mean, I'm one of those guilty ones that every so often there's a handful of clients, especially in my Apple Core practice, where they're more family orientated and kind of friends and family sort of things, where it is all just done on WhatsApp. Like, so having a more secure, safe way. I mean, I'm guilty of sending links to signed documents over WhatsApp, which I know is like should never be done, but friends and family, it's fine, right? Well, is it not fine? It's not fine, but friends and family you can just about get away with. But the idea and the way that you could have those conversations so much quicker, and it is much instant, right? Like if I need someone to send me a bank statement and I ask them to just WhatsApp me, or do you mind just emailing me over a bank statement, you'll probably get it in the next 10 minutes, right? Whereas, or they even maybe send it via WhatsApp, which again, not condoned on this podcast. But the idea of having that instant messaging and that conversation can be so powerful. I know Andy's quite a big thing about text messages, isn't he? A client engager, like that for him was one of the. I remember when he first showed me client engager, that was the thing he was telling me, like almost like most impressed about. Look, we can just send a text. And for his client demographic, it's because that's how they would want to have their information being sent over. So you can see the power. It's just difficult to get someone to buy in. What will be interesting though is if anyone finds this concept, and if we can have a solution where the client's already signed up to, so I'm thinking QuickBooks, Xero, Sage, or Client Engager, Accounting Manager, whatever it's going to be, if they're already signed up to that and they already have an app on their phone, and that gives us the ability then to have this sort of communication route, I might see that more powerful. I might see that more of an opportunity. As long as the APIs are strong enough that we can kind of get it connected to X, Y, Z, maybe that's where this concept can go next. Trying to kind of be onto something, but as you said, like asking a client to go and download another app and put in another solution in, is going to be really difficult. And I think that's where ultimately where for this to work going forward, we need to find a way to make that work.
Definitely. So a couple of people just joining us. So morning to Kirsty and Victoria. Paul has said hard to make a solution for accountants that isn't really a solution for the end user. Seen this a few times over the years, and yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, one of the things we had talks about a while ago at Client Engager is building in like the ability to have like a chat bot or messenger in the client portal. Now, we're not there yet. We've still got other projects we want to do with the client portal before we've got it strong enough to do that. But if we can build that in at no cost, if it's a value add, then you don't care whether only 2 or 3 people use it, or if all of your clients use it, if you're not paying for it, if it's just an added feature. I think the challenge TimWorks had was it wasn't. So for a firm like my size, I think we were looking at £200 £550+ a month for something only 2 people were going to use. Like when you look at the return on investment there, it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough rock to break at the moment. It's to try and work out how we can improve communication whilst maintaining security and data privacy. So, emails are easy to hack. WhatsApp has its flaws, especially if you're using the private WhatsApp and not the business one. So yeah, there's lots we're looking at and the industry are investigating, but I don't think anyone's really found the solution yet.
Yeah, I mean, Paul mentions here about clients use whatever they prefer. Again, send over Facebook. And my frustration with Facebook is that, well, it's Meta, right? Or whatever the group called now. So WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram are all one unit. Like, if they really want to empower us business users to embrace it and A, sort out security, as you've already mentioned, and rightly so, like that's got to be number one. But B, just make one messenger app for that whole solution, right? Like if I could just, as a business, just log in as Boffix or whoever I want, and I've got WhatsApp, I've got Instagram, I've got all of those channels available to me, then we would use it. Like, I mean, they're trying to push the VR, right? Like VR is supposed to be their next big thing, and they want that to be a communication tool. But again, I can't just log in and see everything holistically. I've got 4 different apps now if I want to go to the VR world, just so I can maintain communication with my clients. And I feel like that's what Meta need to do, or Facebook, whatever you want to call them. They need to get that bit sorted and not have these multiple channels. They just need one channel where you could get access to it all. And I think personally, if they can get that sorted, then it's right. Do you want to talk about what Paul says?
Yeah, so Paul's also said that we've got the ability in Dext and in Carbon to basically message clients requesting things. So in Dex, you can put a comment against a receipt, and if the client's got the app, they'll get a notification. They can read it and re-upload a receipt, maybe if it's gone faded or something daft. Carbon, you can send client tasks to the client, and they can click on the magic link and go in and upload and answer questions and stuff. But as Paul says, again, not all the clients want it or use it, and that's fine. But at least you're not paying extra for that. I mean, I suppose in a way you are paying for that tool, but it's not a direct cost to that direct feature that you're paying for. So Paul's also said a great chat solution is one that pushes to and from various chat options. Yeah, you need, as Aaron says, we need this one-stop shop where we can communicate regardless of whether I don't want to have to remember, do I need to go into WhatsApp, Messenger, text, email? Well, I don't want to have to remember which one I need to go into to see a client, to communicate with that client. I just want one place and it deals with it. So unfortunately that's another software in the industry. It feels like it's been a bit of a tough year this year for some softwares in our industry, from whether it's MTD, whether it's a cut down on the amount of funding available in the industry, from venture capital, etc. I mean, there's still plenty of money out there. It's just making sure that I think they're just more cautious about their return on investment, and then not finding the solution that perhaps they thought they had. So yeah, and Paul has just commented that Aaron has the right answer here. One for all, nice and simple. Completely agree.
Yeah, I think the one takeaway about this, though, it's a shame, is that like innovations like this not getting off the ground, that makes it difficult for people to pitch the next big innovation, right? Like whatever that's going to be. There's people much more clever than us out there that's going to come up with something that all could potentially change the world of accountancy. And if we don't support those other innovations, and why would they come to our backyard sort of thing? So I suppose that's the only thing we've got to be careful of, haven't we, going forward? We just need to make sure that if it is like a game-changing one, we all need to get behind it.
Definitely. And I think the challenge is working out which ones are and aren't. We spent a lot of time in our own business trying to implement TimWorks and work it out and stuff. And obviously that didn't pan out. I mean, we pulled out months ago now. I think we pulled out in January in the end. But I think we have to accept that if we want the latest tech, it's going to take some time and investment. I've got my head of technology in my firm who spends most of their week now just playing with tech and working out what features aren't being used properly in the firm and what we can utilize better and get better value for money from the tech stack we do have, while also keeping an eye on things that are coming up in the future. So yeah, it is an investment from us, but we need that investment to make sure we're ahead of the game. So yeah. Other news that came out this week is that Xerocon have confirmed that Xerocon London will be going ahead this next year. So last year, Xero announced that instead of having 3 Xerocons a year, they're going to have 1 a year in over a 3-year period, and it's London's turn next year. So 2024, we will see Xerocon London come back. No announcement that I've seen of location or anything yet, or final dates.
Is
or
it,
have I missed something?
Excel, or have I made that up? Yeah, it hosts in Excel.
They're going to do it in the Excel. That is a big. I suppose you can actually section off the Excel, can't you? So it doesn't have to be as big. But yeah.
But is that not the same date as Formula E as well? So that could be quite interesting. Trying to jump between stands.
We're going for the Formula E. We're not going for the Xerocon, obviously. But
it just makes it interesting, right? When you try and go between a stand or a keynote speak, and you just got to watch, look left and look right. That there's a car not coming past. That could be,
an electric powered car that you can't hear. Great. But yeah, so Xerocon will be at Excel in London next year. So keep an eye out for dates and speakers and stuff. They haven't announced anything else yet with that. It's just that they've confirmed that it's going ahead in London next year, which is cool. Victoria's just said it's the 12th to the 13th of June next year. That's going to make such a busy year. So what have we got now? March is Accountex.
Yep.
April is Digital Accountancy Show.
No. March is Accounting Web.
Accounting Web, sorry. Accounting Web in March. Digital Accountancy Show in April. Accountex in May. Xerocon in June. QuickBooks haven't announced QuickBooks Connect, but that's normally end of Feb, start of March. I mean, when are we going to get any work done? I mean, thankfully, this ultimately for you and I, Aaron, is becoming work, and it is something we enjoy doing. And yes, of course, we'll probably be at all of these events, but
maybe even Xerocon. Maybe.
I think we have to from an Ask the Accountant point of view. Obviously, we won't run QuickBooks Labs from there, but...
Well, I was actually about to say, do we do a QuickBooks Labs from there? But yeah, no. Out of curiosity, though, 2-day event, is that normal for Xerocon? I don't know. We've not been, have we? Is it normally a 2-day event?
I want to say yes.
Okay.
I think it is normal.
Like a 2-day event for... I mean, I know Xero's got a lot to talk about, but yeah, that's a lot, isn't it?
It is, and it's not an event where when I go to QuickBooks Connect, I feel like I've been educated in not just QuickBooks, but also how to run my practice and stuff. And I've not always had that feeling from Xero events. It's more sell. So yeah, it's interesting. 2 days event. Hopefully, it's because they've got loads of value to add.
Yeah, Ashley's confirmed it's normally 2 days.
Right. Okay. That's another 4-day trip to London for you and me, Aaron. Yeah, Ashley, completely agree. We need a list of all of these. Do they talk to each other? Well, my understanding from, shall we say, the after parties and talking to individuals at these after parties is it's quite a competitive space in the conference world at the moment. And I would probably argue that they are more cutthroat at the moment and trying to do each other over than they are communicating and supporting one another. Like, I think every single one of these conferences has got its own USP, and I think they're getting all a bit too defensive about it, and they're all trying to outdo each other rather than actually do what's right for our industry and make sure we've got a fantastic list of events throughout the year. So yeah, and Ashley says, yeah, the XeroCon party is the big party at the end of day one. Headaches on the morning of day two with XeroCon. I think there's headaches with pretty much every conference on day two. Like, I've actually quite enjoyed working as hard as Aaron and I work at these conferences with speaking and recording social media content and stuff, because we don't have time to consume enough alcohol to get a headache. I wake up at 6 o'clock the next morning fresh and ready to go. It's fantastic. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting year.
I've got one question to ask, though, if it is at Excel, if that is correct. Do they do the Fox? Do they do Sunborn, the boat that's next door?
Where is the party?
Or is the party in Excel itself, again, with Formula E cars racing around? I mean, I'm interested to see how it falls out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be an interesting year for the conference season. That is for sure. Ashley asks, have you seen what the ICB are doing? They are doing a tour, so bringing their event to the location near you. What do you think of this concept? Well, I would argue that's nothing new. Pre-COVID, roll your minds back to before COVID, before 2020. There was a time before it, and actually Xero and Free Agent and QuickBooks all had roadshows where they would go and do events over a series of weeks all over the country, including Scotland, believe it or not. I've been to a Xero event in Edinburgh. I didn't last more than an hour and a half before I walked out, but I was there. I've been to QuickBooks events in Edinburgh and Glasgow. I've been to Free Agent events, ironically not in Edinburgh or Glasgow. They're normally up in Dundee. But yeah, the mini conference tour concept, I think it does work, and I think there's a lot of value in it. And I wouldn't be surprised if people like Xero start doing that on the years that they haven't got the London XeroCon, because they've got to keep a presence somewhere. And like QuickBooks have been trialing it again recently, haven't they, Aaron?
Yeah.
They did Birmingham and Manchester as a bit of a test to see what was happening and how well they would be turned out. So I wouldn't be surprised if next year we see a whole list of them again. I think they're just testing to see what the interest is after COVID. So yeah, and Chris Downey says ICB works well, more mini conference rather than an event, set speaking and thought leadership itinerary. I like that. I think that's a great way to do it. And you get so much more value out of a room of 50 people in it than you do 10,000 necessarily. Like, don't get me wrong, the buzz and feel of Accountex is phenomenal, but I do question how much you walk away remembering and retaining. So yeah, and Ashley said XeroCon is a paid for event, so the evening thing is one big event with all kind of food and drink, all for free. Ticket price covers it, plus loads of activities which are always fun. Yeah, they do have a very festival vibe at that event, don't they? Which a lot of people enjoy. And Kirsty had said it would be so much safer just to have one place to log in and all channels come in that way so we don't miss something. Yeah, so just referring back to that conversation around Teamworks and stuff.
Yeah, I think the only danger of this idea of doing the more small event or smaller locations and jumping around. So imagine XeroCon this year is going to be, we already know it's going to be in London, and that's going to be their one big event. If QuickBooks decide not to do a big event this year and they just do go and focus on roadshows, that's fine. But they can't charge for those events, so the quality of that event has to come down. It's a business at the end of the day, right? You got to make financial decisions about it. And the big one for me is that you lose that let's launch something, let's talk about the one more thing on stage sort of idea. Yeah, that gets lost if we're going to be moving it to 7 locations in the UK or whatever they decide to do. Yes, you could announce new stuff, but
yeah, but the ICB aren't there to announce stuff. They're there to educate and inspire their members. So yeah, so I think for some companies, depending on what their roadmap's looking like, I think a road tour would be better than a big event. But yeah.
And do we think then that if they do decide to go for a road show as opposed to a big event, that it's going to be a slow year for them? Is that our takeaway, or?
Yeah, it depends. If I've not got anything, one big thing or any big announcements to make at a big conference, then I'll do a road show and just keep everyone educated on what we do. So yeah, let's see what happens. You can do both. They've done both for several years before COVID. Like they had ZeroCon and the roadshow. They had QuickBooks Connect and the roadshow. So,
which is arguably what QuickBooks did this year, didn't they? I know it was a trial, Manchester, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think 2024 is just going to be a really interesting space for conferencing and roadshows next year. So yeah, we'll keep a close eye on it. Right, change of track slightly here. Let's talk AI and ChatGPT and what softwares are coming out with these new tools built in. So, Aaron, you spotted one. Do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, certainly. So a piece of software that's always been on my radar, and I've never sat down to properly look at it. And it's mad, really, because I think this would be really good for a certain demographic of my clients. But the software is called Avalara. How do we say it? Avalar. Avalar, yeah. So basically the idea here is that they are got a solution for all about international taxes. So just to kind of give you a concept of where they come into play, the idea would be that you could file in another jurisdiction. So imagine you were looking to go into America or Europe or whatever it's going to be. They not only give you a software so you could actually file in those jurisdictions, but they give you the opportunity as well to register through them to get it all done and dusted. So, for certain clients, this is massive, right? Like the idea that you could go and open up international borders, not have to worry about it. I know they've released lately, and again, this is something I need to look into more, need to play around with more, but a whole platform where you could sell all your solutions from there and it will just deal with your international taxes. So I absolutely love this idea. But what our idea was the fact that they've now got a plugin for ChatGPT. So they've jumped on the AI bandwagon. And it makes sense for these, right? Because like the idea they've got here is that, if you want to quickly just find out how much it's going to be to sell a particular item in a particular location, what are the implications? Like what's that going to have effect on your business and your bottom line ultimately? And the idea then it will leverage the sales tax calculator plugin to get you the answer. And I feel like that's really going to be interesting because there's so much opportunity these days for smaller businesses to start looking at going and selling internationally, like thanks to social media, thanks to all of the innovations we've got. Yes, they can go for eBay or Amazon and all of it's dealt with for them. But, there's sometimes you can almost cheapen your brand if you go just through there. If you can get your brand out there firsthand, get it into a hand of an influencer, or, you've seen those success stories coming from there. I've got clients who, just put their product into the hands of an influencer and suddenly overnight their products have just absolutely gone crazy. And I feel like a solution like this is really important because you need to be quick, you need to be agile. Yes, they can talk to an accountant, but not always the accountant's going to be able to get back to them straight away or when they need that information. So, the idea that they've got the opportunity just to jump on something like this sounds exciting. And I think this is where we're going to start seeing the AI solutions coming in, aren't we, going forward, of where they're going to come from and how they're going to be able to sort of solve answers. And for a solution like these guys, I think it gets them in the conversation again and gets some people talking about them again. So yeah, no, I think this is going to be quite a nice one to keep an eye on and see how it is. And hopefully this is less of the buzzword AI that we've kind of been seeing at the moment of solutions just going, oh well, we've put a ChatGPT plugin just so they can get in the conversation. And hopefully this is that we can see some real world effects and real world benefits of how this could go forward.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, in the world we're in today, where e-commerce is just such a big thing, you set up a Shopify store and all of a sudden you're selling to America and everywhere else, and all of a sudden you're going, actually, we're getting out of our comfort zones here. We need some support. So the fact that this tool helps you register for sales tax in those countries, answers your questions to a certain level, it's a really good kickstart. It'll be interesting to see what you can do in the future going forwards.
I mean, my big frustration I've had with all of these, though, is why is Shopify, Squarespace, all the other online commerce platforms, why are they not doing this? Like that, you know, this to me sounds like the right platform. Like, if you're going to sell on this platform, and yeah, they'll have to charge for it, and rightly so. It's you know, it's not something they could just turn on for free, but those platforms should already be built for these sort of things, right? It should be just a case of you toggle a box on, you pay a subscription, whatever the mechanism's going to be, and then you know your sales tax is then is collected in that particular region. And it's always been a frustration of mine that you've got to kind of jump through all these hoops to make it work.
Yeah, no, definitely. While we've got tools like this, making the world a bit smaller and giving small businesses the opportunity to go a bit bigger, it's always a benefit. So yeah, it'll be one to keep an eye out and see how it works in the end. So yeah, and then I found a tool. I tried plumbing into it last week. I was a bit disappointed to get an email back from saying, sorry, we don't support the UK at the moment. I mean, I thought ChatGPT was pretty much global. I mean, they've even announced OpenAI, who own ChatGPT, are opening a London office. So they understand what the UK is. Yeah, opening a London office in the coming months. But there's a software in America called digits.com. Digits basically is an analytical tool that will plug in the same way Futurely and SIF Analytics plug into your general ledgers, and it generates reports and insights, and it's AI powered. So the theory is that A, it will create the reports for you, but B, you can ask it a question of show me a graph with a monthly breakdown of how much I spend at Starbucks, and it shows you that graph. And it can analyze the patterns and give you some conversation points and stuff to start discussing with your clients. It's not unreasonably priced compared to any other reporting software, if I'm honest. So it's free for up to 5 clients to be plugged in. It's $99 for 20 clients, 199 clients for 50. And enterprises then contact us. So it's not completely unreasonable, but as I say, it only talks to American companies at the moment, can only handle dollars. They are coming to the UK. They did confirm that to me last week, but they don't know when. And it only plugs into QuickBooks at the moment, which makes a refreshing change, because normally everyone goes Xero first and then goes to QuickBooks. So I was quite like, oh, I like these guys. So yeah, it's very early days for them still, and I think a lot of people are going to look at it and go, "Oh, that's not a huge amount of value for considering what AI could do compared with what they're using it for yet." I don't think it is. I think it's something we definitely want to be watching out for in the future. You know, I know SIF Analytics have been talking AI for a while, and they're looking at how they can create commentary and stuff. I've not heard anything from Fathom or Futurely or anything regarding AI yet. But at the same time, the value that Digits or SIF Analytics are getting from the AI at the moment, I don't know, it's a huge amount of value for the amount of time invested to build it into the AI. And most AIs at the moment are language-based. They're not numeric-based, and that creates limitations in its own basis. But yeah, definitely one to watch out for. And I think AI in reporting apps is going to be one of the more phenomenal value added to tools that we are going to get in our industry. Like, I'm getting a bit fed up with the industry's attitude at the moment towards AI about, oh, it's going to cost jobs, people are going to be made redundant because of this. It's like, no, it's just going to re-engineer things. I think I've said this in the past on the show, Aaron, that OCR technology, the whole industry was up in arms that this is going to cost jobs. Bookkeepers are going to be no longer. Well, actually, no, bookkeepers are now even more valuable to their clients because they're actually helping them understand their numbers rather than just inputting numbers into software. And that's just what this AI is going to do, is it's just going to help remove the lower value work from us and let us focus on the high value work. And even if that high value is just a better level of communication and a better relationship with the client, then, and the fact that AI has allowed us more time to spend on that relationship, then that's huge. Like, the stronger that relationship is, the less likely that client's going to go to someone else just because they're a bit cheaper. And you've got more lifetime value out of that client.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think there is a rumbling from the accountants and bookkeepers out there that aren't perhaps as tech savvy as some of ourselves and our phenomenal listeners are, that are here every week. And they're starting to awaken to this chat GPT and AI concept and go, oh, my job. Actually, I'm still convinced this is a value add. It's just going to re-engineer our roles even further. I don't see it taking jobs. I don't see it doing anything like that. If anything, like, imagine if you managed to roll out chat GPT in such a way that you were then able to give your team a 4-day working week whilst maintaining their salaries. Like, the opportunities are phenomenal for work-life balance, building client relationships, etc. We just need to be open to it. And our industry's not always been great with technology and being open to it, but I would argue a larger percentage of our industry is now open to it compared to 5 years ago.
Yeah, but I still don't think there's enough, though, right?
Oh, no.
So a few things there, though. I think the fact that this digital digits, was it digits?
Yep.
The fact they've gone QuickBooks only, is this because of the new pricing structure that Xero's put on their apps? Is that the showcasing going forward that Xero may be a better platform to actually put your build your app around, but it financially doesn't make sense?
There are other issues with the Xero API, as I've discovered recently. So Client Engager want to link to Xero, but from what we can make out in the API text and rules, we can only add 5 users to it for 3 months. Then we can add another 20 for another 3 to 6 months before we're certified and roll it out. Well, we've got well over 30 firms wanting to use a Xero API. How do we pick those? How do we say, yes, you can have it, but you can't?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do we just say, actually, no, none of you can have it?
Exactly.
Like, so, yeah, we're due to make an announcement later today once I've got the final facts in front of me on that. But the Xero rules of certification for their API, and then their insistence to charge for what they class as an open API, which isn't, because you have to pay for it. I think technology is going to start going, well, actually, we're moving quicker than that, or we're trying to do a better value product offering than that. So we won't link to Xero. Now, in Xero's defense here, I would argue the reason Digits have gone with QuickBooks is because that is the biggest platform for small businesses in America.
Yes. Yeah. Makes sense.
They've got the market.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense in the US to go with QuickBooks first. But the Xero API rules of certification and their charging for certain types of information is going to be a problem for them very, very quickly. They might not care that a small practice management software is not going to potentially link to them and their users aren't getting the same value. But I know my users will. And it's actually going to cause us a headache of, well, if you don't link, we'll go to someone that does, because they built their link before these rules came in. So yeah, it's a testing thing at the moment that we're going to have to look at finding a solution for. But yeah, Digits is, I think the main reason they've gone QuickBooks only at the moment is the fact that is the majority market in America, which is where they're based.
Makes sense. And then you point about AI and the kind of conversation around there. I was privileged enough to be invited to the roundtable for ICAW on AI. And the idea is sound, right? As a professional body, they want to get to know what their users and their community are thinking about AI at the moment, like a sounding board, and how ICAW can ultimately help and kind of push this forward. But as people are saying here, like Paul says, always glass half empty reaction. How Ashley's talking about here, when computers first came out and the price of a small car, people said they'll cost jobs, and ultimately we need to embrace changing tools. there is too many out there that are seeing this as they're comparing this to Terminator, and they're comparing it to the end of the world sort of scenario, and the end of the jobs, and there was one person who was trying to compare it to the fact that this is just the same as when we allowed the self checkout services, and jobs are just going to get taken away from it. And it really isn't. Like, I feel like I do feel for people who maybe won't be able to adapt as quickly, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of work that's going to be left out of them from there. There'll still be work for them, but I feel like people who can't adapt to it as quick, that I do feel for them. I feel like they're going to maybe have to pivot their whole business. Maybe they need to go for that. Yeah. Like Sam said in our recent one, like humanize numbers more. Maybe that's what they need to go for. Because for me, you said there about the 4-day week, you said there about that idea that our jobs going forward is to add value to what the AI is saying. Like, any AI could look at a bunch of numbers, when it's all built, and say, you've spent more on your marketing costs this year, and it's blah 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 blah. But it's the accountant then to come in and say, look, yes, your marketing costs have gone through, but actually, if we look at those marketing costs and where you've spent them, actually, if you spend more on X, Y, Z, look how much you've gained from it. So, it's not that you've overspent on your marketing. What you've done is you found an actual gold mine there, and you now need to start mining that gold, right? That's what the accountant brings to the table. Yeah, that's what we as business advisors and what we're trying to push for. That's our added value. And if you give us the tools to be able to see that data and more of that data and have a more insight into that, then that's where we can then come along and help and prosper the client. And I feel like that's where we've got to keep remembering we're going to get tools that ultimately is going to make us become better accountants and better business advisors. And ultimately, hopefully, fingers crossed, means that we're going to empower our clients to become better clients and more successful. And it's self-fulfilling, right? Like, if we make our clients better and they get, bigger and stronger, then we're going to be able to grow with them and everything else. And I feel like that's the bit, like Ashley says here, we need to embrace the change. I feel like that's the bit that we're almost forgetting. We're seeing this doom and gloom of the taking our jobs and taking over the world and everything else. But ultimately, there's a real big opportunity for us to make accountants relevant again and actually make us come out of it looking better than we had before. And I feel like that's what we need to keep our focus on, of how can we use this for good? How can we use this to make us as an accounting profession even more desirable? And the big one I keep coming back to is retention of jobs. Like, if we can make it so that we're not going to bring new people into the accounting industry and just going to sit them in front of a filing cabinet and they're just going to sit there just churning this work out monotonously, blah blah blah. If we can embrace, like, bring them in, and that's not their first look at accountancy, it's, we've made these wonderful reports, and what do you think about them, and trying to build that sort of element to it. And straight away from day one, we bring them into the exciting part about accountancy and the quote unquote sexy part of accountancy. I feel like that's where we've got an opportunity then to bring in a whole new breed of accountants that ultimately, it is difficult now. Like, why would someone want to just come into the world of accountancy just to sit there filing VAT returns when they could do X, Y, Z that sounds far more exciting, And I feel like we need that, don't we, to be able to level the playing field.
Yeah, and that analogy someone's given you about, it's just like when the self-service checkouts came into Asda and stuff, people lost jobs. Actually, prove to me they did. Don't quote me on this, I cannot remember the source, but last I was reading on this, when self-service came into McDonald's and Asda and Sainsbury's and stuff, no one lost their jobs. They redistributed everyone. Like, just because we don't see them sat on a checkout now doesn't mean they're not there. They're now keeping the shelves stocked quicker. They're now turning stuff around. They're now doing other roles. From what I last read, no one's employment levels were dropped because of self-service checkouts or in line with the rollout of self-service checkouts. So I think we take the same principle and know that will apply to the accounting world of AI. No one's going to lose their role because of OCR technology or AI uptake. You might not recruit and grow your team as big as quickly, but it's not going to replace anyone. It's not going to remove anyone that's currently in role. So yeah, I think you and I are extremely privileged from this point of view. You and I sit here, we have fantastic early adopting listeners who embrace technology. We go to conferences throughout the year or all in one go next year, where everyone we are surrounded by is embracing technology. So I think we forget at times, and that's why it's so hard impacting when you sit at a governing body round table and hear all the negativity about it. I think that's why it hits us so hard, because we forget not everyone is as a tech facing and embracing as we are, and the community that we are surrounded by. And we just need that community to be a bigger proportion of the industry. That's what we need. But yeah, on that insightful end, even if I do say so myself, we are running out of time, so we're going to wrap this up. It is Monday after it all. Everyone needs to go back to work and go and get their day started. So Aaron, what have you got coming up this week?
So this week, as I've already said, I'm off to eat, sleep, and QuickBooks according to this. But yeah, we're off to a bit of a staycation sort of idea. So we're looking forward to that. I'll still be working, but not as
change of scenery.
Yeah, exactly. And not actually no client-facing meetings. I booked I've completely unbooked all the client-facing ones. So the idea would be that I've got a few projects that I've had in the background that I've not been able to do yet. So I want to start implementing them. So I'm looking forward to that. I love a good working on the business, not in the business sort of idea. So I'm really excited for that. And then it's QuickBooks Labs, if my voice does come back. So if you do want to see my location and where I am, then do join in, because we'll be fingers crossed that the tech works. We'll be live for that. It is actually quite funny, because I've just looked at what my bags are for a week away of a staycation. I'm taking less stuff with me than when we went to Digital Accounting Chair and Accountex. How does that work? And I've got the privilege of a car, right? So I could take anything I want with me in principle, but I'm taking far less with me for a week away than a couple of days in Digital Accounting Chair and Accountex. So yeah, explain that one. So yeah, what about you, Jan? What have you got planned?
No, fairly busy week with client meetings, client engager stuff. We've got our Zama integration rolling out at the end of this week. So it's already been there, but we've got a wider tool going out. As you say, QuickBooks Labs this week on Wednesday. So tune in to that, everybody. And if you haven't listened to it already, make sure you give our Ask the Accountant, We've Got Cool Friends episode that went live Friday afternoon last week a listen, starring the wonderful Samantha Mitchum. The open and honesty and that she had on that episode was just fantastic. Like, just shows what a genuine, honest person she is. Even if she didn't declare her wages when she was 17, her tips when she was a 17-year-old, but never mind, we all make mistakes. But yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic episode. It's one of our most listened to episodes already, which is phenomenal. And just a credit to Sam and how fantastic she is as a person. So if you've not listened to that, definitely give it a listen. It's well worth it. Otherwise, I will be joining you all next Monday from here on Ask the Accountant Live. So as always, guys, thank you very much for all the comments. There have been tons coming in. It's been an absolutely bumper week. And if you're listening back to us on a Wednesday or any other day of the week through the podcast channels, why not join us live at 8:30 on a Monday morning on your favorite social media platform? We are on all of them. We cluster bomb every single one with this live show. So why not join us live, react, comment to us as we're going, and keep us honest and true. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Have a fantastic week. And Aaron, I'll let you hit the outro.
Cheers, everyone. Have a good week. Bye now.
Bye-bye.